Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a very exciting video. I am filming this in collaboration with my real life friend and YouTube friend, Mariam. And I am super excited because we saw each other recently and we were like, okay, let's film together. But the whole 1.5 meters trying to keep a distance thing didn't work out. But he said, well, what we can do at a distance is collaborate on a video. And she suggested to do a ranking of the palettes you bought this year type of video. It's something that she does more often. She has an amazing series of ranking all of her Pat McGrath palettes, and that went through the year, and she was doing both the big ones and now she's gonna introduce the quads as well. I think it is, yeah, it's super fun to watch. And please, if you're not subscribed to Mariam or you don't know who she is, her channel will be linked in the description box. She's a good friend of mine. I think I can call her a friend of mine. We clicked also outside of YouTube. We met via Instagram and YouTube, but we clicked on the outside, and it's wonderful to be able to talk about any topic with her. We have a lot in common, and yeah, first of all, being an expat in the Netherlands, coming here, doing your PhD, staying for love and work, and having a YouTube and a blog channel, a YouTube channel and a blog. We have a lot in common. So don't forget to check her out, and let's get into the video. We are going to rank all the palettes that I bought in 2020. Now, it's the first time I do this because usually I don't buy a lot of palettes. If you know me, I've always been more of a single eyeshadow person. I've always had quite a limited amount of eyeshadow palettes, or always in the recent years. I decluttered a lot of my palettes, of my eyeshadow palettes in 2017, I think. And this year, apparently, I went all out into pre-made palettes. Maybe it was because I was uninspired. So I kind of lost track of my singles, or maybe it was just because there were a lot of good things and I started spending more and I was okay with spending more on my eyeshadow palettes. But let's try to rank them. I'm gonna go from the bottom to the top. And if you've seen my 2020 favorites, you already know the top number one, but everything else in between not. There are 17 palettes in this ranking. And I think that's a lot. And it's also not my whole collection. You can see that in my eyeshadow palette declutter, and we'll talk about it a bit more in the inventory as well. But let's get started. We find at the bottom, the worst palette of the year to me was the Natasha Denona Cranberry palette. This is a 5-pan full-size eyeshadows from Natasha Denona. I bought it secondhand. It was in the original formulation that was a limited edition holiday 1 or 2 years ago. And I didn't like, the color story didn't work for me, but also the formula of the red or like the more cranberry shade wasn't really great. I don't know. I was having a hard time creating looks. I was having a hard time making it perform like I wanted it to. So I decluttered it quite soon after getting it. And that was the worst one of the year. Then we go from here on. There wasn't really anything that that didn't perform well. It's all personal preference in terms of color stories. So I want that to be clear. I think all of the palettes that I mentioned from now on are very, very valid in terms of formulations, just not my preference in terms of either textures or color stories. And we're building up towards what is really, well, you'll notice really Alice color stories. So the next one up for me is the Nabla Cutie Berry palette. I also decluttered this one quite soon after buying it. I purchased it at launch. I discussed this a little bit already in my declutter. I liked the idea of having all 3 of the palettes that they released because I thought I could get use out of them and combine them. But in the end, that's not the way I was using them. And I really wasn't getting any use out of the palette. And I said before, it stays in my collection for a year and then I declutter it, let me get rid of it immediately. And it went along to someone who loves it more. And it's fine. The berries are not something I wear a lot, and that's okay. I have my singles for that. I don't need a palette of berries. Next up is also a palette that I recently decluttered, and it is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro. It's a peach and gray color story, two very beautiful special shades that unfortunately or fortunately I already had dupes for in other palettes, and it was just not my color story. I don't know, the gray doesn't work for me as a color, and I couldn't get the punch that I wanted from it, and now it's in a better home that I hope will enjoy it, or the person I hope will enjoy it more. So that was my the one after that. Then I have the two palettes that I was gifted recently, and they're down here because I don't know how I feel about them, and they're not something I bought or I would have bought, so they're not super high into my priority, or yeah. One is the Sigma Corde Rosa. I mentioned this was a gift from a friend of mine, and she had it in her collection and she wasn't using it, and she said, Alice, do you want to give it a whirl? And I did, and I am actually quite happy with the quality of it, but the color story is very pink, it's very soft, and it's just not very me. So I'm still trying to figure out how much I can get use out of this, but it's not very high in my ranking because of the color story. I think the formulation, especially of these two shimmers down here, the more pinky champagne and the gold, is really beautiful. It really makes the lid looks wet. So formulation wise, I'm liking it. It's just very pink. So that is, as I mentioned, it's a matter of color story for me. The next one up was also same friend, same gift, in terms of something that she wasn't using and that I could try out, is the Huda Beauty medium, nude medium palette. And this one is here not so high, just because I feel like the shimmers are very like monochromatic. Like you get an orange look here, more or less orange, but you get an orange look. You get a quite a nice berry look with these two, but I find that it's a bit too orangey, a bit too warm for me, and not something I've been loving to wear lately. I'm much more into more neutral browns than very, very orangey browns. And maybe, yeah, that's counterintuitive with the palette that is further up in the ranking, but I have some of the same criticism there that I have for this one right here. And I feel like with this one, you get quite the same look over and over and over again. The quality is really great. I love the mattes in here. I think the shimmers are really beautiful. I am missing an inner corner shade in here, and this one is dark, but not dark enough. I think one of these three could have been a very, very dark brown, reddish. I don't know. Anyways, it's a valid palette, not one of my favorites of the year. Then we come to Nabla palettes. The first one here is the Nabla Cutie Metropolitan, and this was released this year. And the reason why it's not very high up in my ranking is the coral, number one. And the second is indeed, like, I think that's the only reason. If this would have been a nice, I don't know, creme brulee by Makeup Geek, I actually wanted to repress my, maybe I should do that. Repress my creme brulee in the old formulation in this pan, in place of this pan, this coral. Because it's a beautiful eyeshadow palette, you can do very nice neutral looks, everyday looks. It has special shades, these two that have amazing, I can show you, textures and shifts. Like these are topper shades, and I really like these. They really make any look really special. But just this coral means that I don't have a transition shade with this palette, so that's why it didn't make it so high in my ranking, but I really like this color story right here. So unfortunately, I don't know, maybe I will eventually get to the point that I'll just repan that coral, sorry. Talking about coral, the next one up, which is a bit, I find better than the Metropolitan is the Cutie Coral, because this is a coral palette. This is made to be coral palette. It has a coral in it and all shades that go with it. It's like, this makes sense to me. And but the real reason why this is higher up is that, well, the color story is great, but this shade is just amazing. This is a mandarin, and it's an orange topper. I don't think you can see them, but these are all textures that make it look very wet. And then this red metallic shade is gorgeous. So yeah, this one right here ranked better than the other one. The color story is more cohesive, I find, so it's higher up. Next one up is the ColourPop and the Child palette. We're getting to a point that from here upwards, it was really hard to rank them because I like them all, and there's been some shuffling in the past week or so. Like, I wrote down the palettes and then I started shuffling them on my phone because I think my feelings change a lot depending on the season, and recently one of the palettes actually was bumped up quite a bit. Anyways, here is the Star Wars and the Child. Nothing wrong with it. Great palette, great color story. I like it a lot. Can I rank it higher? There's other palettes that I like more, other color stories that I like more, but there's really nothing wrong with this one. A nice, easy green palette, and something for every day. This is like an everyday palette for me, and yeah, it's great. I find it really difficult now to rank palettes. Next one up is the Mini Retro palette, Mini Glam palette by Natasha Denona. And this one is here because one needs a good staple, thoughtless, I need an eye look that takes me 2 seconds and it looks amazing. This is it. And I like it. Could it have been better? Yes. But my feelings for this palette is comfort and ease of use. So yeah, definitely like it. I mentioned this before, but this one this one with sultry means that I really don't need the new Glam palette. This one is enough for me. Condensate the whole 15 pans in one 5-pan mini. This is great. I can definitely recommend it for anybody who has a more neutral eyeshadow life, or that they prefer doing one eye look all the time, or one style of eye look all the time. This is so beautiful. It will make you look very elegant, and has the right depth in the mattes, has pretty shimmers. No special shades in here, which is my only criticism maybe. Next up is a really new palette to me. That is the Glam Shop green palette, I guess it's called. I don't speak Polish. The brand is Polish, so I have no idea what it says. But the reason why this one is up here is, one, the color story. I love the color story of this one. There's this really deep forestry greens. There's the more olivey, grungy greens. There's a pop of neon. And then the formulas of these are incredible. Like, they are so shiny and beautiful, and you can see them from space. I don't know. I really like the formulas of the Turbo Clothes from Glam Shop and this palette. I've used it twice. I've used it twice. But I love the color story and I love the formula of the shadows that I tried so far. So that's why it's up here. And I like it a little bit more than the Child palette, for example, which is another green palette, because it has more depth and character and punch. That one is more of everyday. This one is more of a, yeah, for me, everyday. But it has more punch. It has more personality, let's say. This is a long video. Next up, we are at just under the top 5. So this is number 6. And it is the Melt Rust palette. Now, I bought this year thinking, well, I found there was a 20% off code and I've wanted it for a while, and maybe it's a new neutral staple for me. This is a beautiful neutral eyeshadow palette, again, with personality and with punch and saturation, which is what I like. I don't like so much very washed out or low pigmentation eyeshadow palettes, and it's full of mattes, but it has a good balance with the 3 shimmers. I like it. I don't use it a lot, which I'm gonna work on in the coming year, but I like the tones in here. The reason why it's not any higher is that the shimmers are a bit boring. They're not particularly shimmery, they're not particularly glittery, they're not particularly interesting. With the formulations that are out there now, this falls short in that point of view. But the mattes, I love these mattes in Melt's formula. It's similar mattes to the Gemini formula, not of their like worse palettes, let's say. But yeah, I like it. It's at number 6, the Melt Rust palette. Then we go to number 5, and this is the palette that climbed up the ranking unexpectedly in the last few weeks, and that is the Nabla Dreamy 2 palette. And the reason is that it's just so good for the season. It's just so good for what I like to do, and yeah, I love wearing these shades. I've worn them a lot in the past few months. Libertine is gorgeous. It's more of a sort of a, it's not a pressed glitter, but it's a bit of a gritty eyeshadow compared to, let's say, Amarcord, which feels more like a cream. So yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but this is Libertine, and it's more of a chunky, sparkly shade, whereas this is Amarcord, which is a creamy base with a little bit of sparkle. It's 2 very different, but both innovative formulations. I really like that. And then we have the 2 mattes, latex mattes in here that are Offline and Dionysus, which are just beautiful. They make the perfect red, and like this is an eggplanty shade. They make the perfect combination of mattes for like 1, 2, 3, 4 eyeshadow look. Love it. So I'm really liking the formulas in here. Not all the shades are my taste, but I really like this palette. This one went up quite quickly in the ranking lately. I just realized I've been counting wrong. It was not 5. That was number 6. This one is number 5. And this is the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. Now you understand why I was saying that I'm a bit maybe contradicting myself with the warm color story thing. This is definitely an orangey, heavy, warm color story. But the reason why this one is up here is that it has a lot of very interesting textures, and I love the cream to matte dark here in Offline. I did a look recently. I think my 2019 favorites in retrospect probably, that you guys actually loved my eye look, and it was this one all over the lid and blended in my crease, and you can really intensify. And I did a whole, like the whole matte look was with that, and then I put a Clionadh Cosmetics eyeshadow on top. But I love that formula. The reds right here are super interesting, and yeah, silk I love to use all the time. I kind of shy away from the more like orangey ones, but the red tones in here are so beautiful together with that really dark one. So I'm actually not mad at this. Not mad at this. It's at number 5 in my ranking because it's a little bit monotone, and it could have probably been done in 9 shades for my taste, but it's really a really good palette, and I'm really happy I have it. Again, should use it more, but only 2 eyes. So many palettes to use. Number 4 in my 2020 ranking is the Nabla Cutie Palette Platinum. This is so beautiful, such a good color story, and so many good textures. You have like a molten silver that is like the most beautiful thing ever. You have a beautiful topper that is more of a taupey neutral. You have 2 mattes that are I wouldn't say unexpected, but not boring. Especially this shade right here. I love this tone of brownie mauve. A very nice old gold and a very nice mauvey shimmer right here. I love this palette. It's so interesting, and yeah, I'm really happy I have it, and probably from the order of, from the Cutie palettes of Nabla, this is the only one I need, or like I would want to keep for a longer time. The other ones are nice, but more nice to have. So this one is really a really good addition to my collection. Top 3, you guys, top 3. Can you guess what we're having next? The Natasha Denona Gold Palette. This is not number 1. And yeah, why? Difficult, but it's probably because it's only 15 shadows in this ginormous eyeshadow palette and it costs so much money. But what I do love about this is the fact that you have a very neutral heavy palette, which means this can be your everyday neutral. This could be my only palette if I had to choose. I think so. This could be my only palette because it's beautiful neutral tones, some warmth, but more on the yellow tones, not on the oranges. And then you have the pops of green and teal, which, if you know me, is very me. So I love this palette. The textures are interesting. Auto, I mention all the time. This one in the inner corner all the time. These super beautiful textured eyeshadows make really, really interesting eye looks. I think this is beautiful. I love it. Number 3, gold palette. If it was a midi, so the size of bronze, for example, and the price of bronze, it would have been almost perfect, I would say. I'm just sad it's so big, honestly. So big and so expensive. Number 2, surprise, surprise, new entry, but it just went up there, at Forest Sight by ColourPop. I don't know. I feel like this color story was done by me for me. I could change very little, but this is amazing. It's like all the deep mattes that I love, all the, I don't know. It's full of mattes, first of all. It has the right transitions. It's beautiful. It's perfect. The formula of these dark mattes that are so difficult to make is so good. The gold is so beautiful. And I think you could have done this eye look with this palette. I didn't, but you could have if you wanted to. Just with this row, it would have been pretty much the same. The only eyeshadow I don't like is this green, which is called Evergreen. I mentioned it in my review of the palette. I mentioned it multiple times. This is just not punchy enough for me. But for the rest, it's an amazing palette. Absolutely great job done by Rod Beauty Christie and ColourPop. Number 2 in my ranking. If you can still get your hands on it because it will restock, I think this is a must-have. It's one of those. I only have 3 ColourPop palettes these days, 4 ColourPop palettes these days, and if I could only keep one, I would keep this one. We have made it to the best palette of 2020. It's also the first one I bought, actually, so it's the one I got the most use out of, and it is the Metropolis palette. It's what I'm wearing on my eyes right now. I did full videos on almost all of these palettes, actually, but I did quite an in-depth video on this because it's such a big expense, but it costs the same as the gold palette, and it has so many more shades. Or 28 against 15. This is the midi size pans. I think this is the best value for money that you will get from a big palette of Natasha Denona because you have so many eyeshadows in so many nice formulas. You have the regular powder mattes, you have their, what is it called? Cream to powder mattes, you have their regular shimmers, you have their more chunky shimmers, you have, yeah, beautiful, a lot of cream to powder, which I love, like also these neutrals down here. You have a neutral look, you have the blue look, the greens, the military greens, the forest greens, lots of gold, and some oranges in there as well. The only thing is that this one intimidates me so much lately. I don't know why. Today I went with the 1, 2, 3 eyeshadows, these 3, and I made this look, and indeed, you can make it, you have to look at it in smaller color stories because like this, it's quite intimidating. Even to me, who I am a color lover, but I want to try to get out of using always these military greens with the gold, and I wanted to do something a bit more. So yeah, I love this palette. The color story is great. There's so much versatility. Money well spent for me this year, and the best palette of 2020 for me. So there you have it. These are all the palettes that I bought in 2020, and I have ranked them for you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm curious to see if you actually expected this, or if you expected something different. We've been this year together looking at eyeshadows and or just makeup in general, so let me know if it was as you expected. And don't forget to go check out Mariam's video. It will be linked in the cards here and in the description box below. Yeah, go say hi. She's a good friend of mine. I love her and I can't wait to see her again. And yeah, I wish you all a very happy passing of 2020 and a new beginning of 2021. Hopefully a happier beginning or a happier continuation, and yeah, a little bit of joy. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!